Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Emily Ketta in for Savannah.
Good to have you with us this morning. We are going to begin with President Trump ramping up the pressure on Tehran. A warning, some of the video we're about to show you is disturbing. Now, human rights groups say a rising number of Iranian citizens are being killed in the regime's violent crackdown on mass anti-government demonstrations. Video from Tehran appears to show security force members firing on protesters with automatic weapons. U.S.-based human rights activists say so far at least 2,500 people have been killed. We should note Iran's government has not released its own numbers, and there is limited information coming out of the country amid that ongoing internet and communications blackout.
In a post on Truth Social yesterday, President Trump urged Iranians to keep protesting, adding that help is on its way. The president appeared unfazed when asked about the regime's threats to retaliate against any U.S. military intervention.
Yeah, Iran said that the last time I blew them up with the nuclear capability, which they don't have any longer. So Iran said that the last time. They better behave.
For more, let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, good morning to you. Is it clear what the president means when he says help is on the way? Is he talking about taking military action against Iran?
We don't know, Emily and Joe, and that is the big question. And as of last night, the president indicated he hadn't made a final decision, but that he could be making one soon. And we know that top national security officials were huddled at the White House for a big meeting to discuss Iran yesterday that was chaired by the vice president. And we believe that the president would later then have been briefed. And again, it's unclear whether he's made a final decision, but he is weighing a range of options from potential military strikes on Iran to options that would not include U.S. military involvement, things that could be like cyber attacks or just continued support of the protesters in some way that we haven't seen before. So it's unclear, but we know that the president has had some really sharp words for Iran in terms of what he believes they will face if they continue, he says, to execute protesters.
So, Monica, I mean, just what is President Trump saying about what his end goal in Iran would be?
Well, to put it plainly, he said his goal is to, quote, win. Again, a little bit unclear exactly how he defines that, how he would measure that success. But the president has had, again, these very tough words for Iran, for the regime there, and has been threatening for more than a week now, saying that the U.S. is locked and loaded and ready to go. But there are larger questions, certainly, about whether that means he is looking for regime change, new leadership there, what that looks like, what could happen after some of this potential action. That's still a real unknown.
So switching gears a little bit, President Trump gave a speech to members of the Detroit Economic Club yesterday. There's some new numbers that we're watching. The same day, the Labor Department reported that inflation rose to 2.7% over the last year. And a new poll from NBC's Detroit affiliate and the Detroit News also shows close to 2/3 of Michigan voters say their household costs have gone up. So was any of this news reflected in President Trump's remarks yesterday?
Well, the president really has spoken about the economy in overly positive tones for months now, saying that essentially his policies are going to have a big impact on how people are feeling, despite the fact that polls say that people still have a lot of concerns about issues like affordability and the economy. But the president yesterday did talk about this and did say that he believes that some of the best months are ahead, again, thanks to what his administration is doing. Here's how he put it.
Under our administration, growth is exploding, productivity is soaring, investment is booming, incomes are rising, inflation is defeated, America is respected again like never before. The results are in, and the Trump economic boom is officially begun.
So a rosy overview there from the president, but economic indicators, again, have shown that prices have gone up on some key items and continue to. And again, it's just reflected in what people say they experience every day, even though the White House says they're going to unveil more economic proposals in the coming weeks.
Monica, before we let you go, we know officials from Denmark and Greenland are actually heading to the White House today, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been tasked with crafting the proposal to try and purchase the Danish territory, though to the best of our knowledge, it's not for sale. But what are we learning about how much that could cost? How do they even begin to put a price tag on it?
And officials from both Greenland and from Denmark have said very plainly, Joe, that Greenland is not for sale. But there does appear to be an opening to a conversation or perhaps a negotiation about what could happen next. Now, remember, it was the president who said that he was basically wanting to make a deal, quote, the easy way And if he doesn't get that, he says he'll do it the, quote, hard way. Unclear what that means, but when there were questions about whether that would mean taking Greenland by force militarily, it seems the White House has stepped back from that approach ever so slightly and instead is trying to see if there's a way for the U.S. to acquire Greenland by buying it. And according to some scholars and former U.S. officials, their estimate is that it could cost as much as $700 billion to do that. Again, that's not a final estimate. That is just sort of based on what and how much it could be. Unclear, again, whether that's even a conversation that these officials are willing to have, though they will be at the White House for some key meetings today to see where this goes.
All right, Monica, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Former President Bill Clinton and his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, are facing possible contempt of Congress charges from House Republicans for defying congressional subpoenas. But now some Democrats are saying that Clinton should testify before a congressional committee that's investigating Jeffrey Epstein. NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr joins us with more on this. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. The Clintons argue they're being unfairly singled out and have nothing material to add to the investigation, while leading Republicans say they're not accusing the former president of wrongdoing, but believe he may have more information to share. Contempt of Congress charges now looming for former President Bill Clinton, with the House Oversight Committee saying they'll take that rare step after the former president failed to appear for a deposition in the investigation into late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
He did not show up today.
Former President Clinton, who appears in a series of photos and records related to Epstein, has long denied wrongdoing or knowledge of Epstein's crimes.
No one's accusing Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions, and that's why the Democrats voted along with Republicans to subpoena Bill Clinton.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is scheduled to appear today, but in a letter to the House Oversight Chair, both Clintons declined, saying they had nothing to add, calling the subpoenas legally invalid, and writing, quote, "Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences. For us, now is that time." Some Democrats arguing the Clintons should be allowed to answer in writing, as others have, and pressing the Justice Department to finish releasing the full Epstein files.
And then we'll be able to determine all that we need to know.
Though Democrat Ro Khanna, who helped lead the charge to force the files release, said former President Clinton should appear.
Everyone involved should be providing an explanation, and I have conducted this in a way that doesn't single out Republicans or Democrats.
Conflicting views in a high-profile push for answers. A Clinton spokesperson previously called on the Justice Department to make public anything tied to the former president in the Epstein files, accusing the DOJ of selective releases to imply wrongdoing where there is none. The Justice Department says it's still combing through the files for redactions close to a month after a deadline to release them all. Joe?
All right, Alice, thank you so much.
And outrage continues to grow in Minneapolis this morning, where it's now 1 week to the day since Renee Good was shot and killed by an ICE officer there. Several federal prosecutors have now resigned over concerns with the direction of the Justice Department's investigation into her death, according to a source familiar with the resignations. Against that backdrop, clashes continue to escalate between federal immigration officers and residents critical of their actions in the Twin Cities. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster is there with the latest. Shaq, good morning.
Hi there. Well, exactly 1 week since the shooting of Renee Nicole Good, you see this memorial behind me just continues to grow. We see people still bringing flowers, doing what they can to pay their respects. But so too do the protests around Minneapolis and St. Paul, and the clashes between protesters and members of federal law enforcement as they continue their federal immigration operations. We saw overnight, for example, protesters going around downtown Minneapolis hotels where they believed ICE agents were trying to make it known that they don't want them here and don't want this increased enforcement. And we're also seeing those clashes across many neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods like the one I'm in now. We saw a clash just about a block and a half from where I'm standing right now. And all of this is coming as there are growing concerns and questions about the investigation into the shooting that led to her death, including mass resignations in the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota. Multiple prosecutors resigned resigning after sources say they were receiving pressure from DOJ officials to not just investigate the shooter and the ICE officer, but also to investigate Good and her widow's possible connections to activist groups. That is something that many protesters brought up to us yesterday as a sign of impartial investigation, or lack of impartial investigation, and concern that this investigation will not lead to a result they can trust. And meanwhile, the Trump administration is announcing new moves against the Somali community, ending temporary protected status for members of that community. While I spoke to a state senator who said it's only going to impact a couple of hundred people in the Minneapolis area. She told me it's another move that will lead to families being ripped apart. She's told me she feels like her community at this point is being targeted. Back to you.
Shaq, on the ground for us. Thanks so much.
The Supreme Court seems likely to uphold state laws that ban transgender women and girls from playing on school sports teams. That's the assessment from many court observers after hours of testimony yesterday.
Lawyers for two transgender students from Idaho and West Virginia argued that the state laws don't take into account individual circumstances. For example, someone who takes puberty blockers may no longer be bigger, faster, or stronger than a typical female. But the states claim there are still athletic advantages regardless of hormonal treatments, so the bans are necessary to keep competition fair.
For more on this, we're joined by NBC News senior Supreme Court reporter Lawrence Hurley. Lawrence, good to have you with us. So at least 5 of the 6 conservative justices seem to lean toward the idea that these state laws don't violate the Constitution or Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. Just what were some of the key points, the key comments we heard from the justices yesterday?
Yeah, so sure. I mean, as you said, like there's 2 different discrete issues. So on Title IX, which is the federal law that bars discrimination in education, a lot of the focus went on this thing called the Javits Amendment, which is this provision that was added to the law that specifically allows for sex classifications in sports. So it's sort of saying that there's a sort of almost like a carve out for the sports that allows for women and girls to be on separate teams to men and boys. And that's based on biology, so they were saying in court yesterday. So if you look at that, it seems even maybe some of the liberal justices could be on board with the idea that Title IX does allow for some sort of restrictions to be put on who can be on the girls' and women's teams. And on the Equal Protection Clause, which is a much more complicated thing, it just seemed like they weren't open to the idea that individuals could bring these kind of very discrete claims based on their specific situation against these laws. So it seems like that those claims won't be able to go forward either. So that would mean that the laws are upheld.
So, Lawrence, just looking at the timeline here, the court's ruling on this is expected to come out by the end of June. Advocates say it could have a far-reaching impact on daily life for all transgender people. Can you walk us through the argument there?
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially does have that implication, although based on the arguments yesterday, it seems like the justices kind of want this case to just be about sports. And that's why, you know, if they don't get into those issues to do with the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, they don't have to necessarily decide whether transgender people should be a protected class, which based on the court's conservative majority seems unlikely they would go that far anyway. So it may be that this decision is restricted to sports. That's still, you know, bad news for obviously for transgender advocates, but it might not have the huge implications that it might have had if they'd gone in a different direction.
Lawrence, you mentioned this yesterday. A few years ago, the court sided with the trans community in a major discrimination case. I mean, Justice Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion in that case. But since then, the conservative majority court has really dealt some major blows to trans people. Last year, it allowed Tennessee to ban gender-affirming care for minors, let the Trump administration ban trans people from the military. So based on just what we heard yesterday, is there just an emerging line of thinking on transgender rights among the majority that could impact yesterday's cases and maybe be a signal of things we see down the road?
Well, one thing that seems clear is that they seem to want to deal with these cases on a case-by-case basis, right, rather than making any sweeping rulings of one way or the other. the discrimination case you mentioned with Justice Gorsuch writing, was limited to Title VII of the employment discrimination law. The case they're going to decide on sports might be restricted to sports. Justice Gorsuch is kind of really interesting because yesterday he came out and said he thinks Title IX is different as it applies to sports, at least because of the Javits Amendment that I mentioned. And so he seems like he's probably not a vote for the plaintiffs, at least on the Title IX claim. So, they're looking at these cases individually, but of course the trend line at the moment is very much against transgender rights.
And we've been watching some of the images of dueling rallies outside the Supreme Court, including during yesterday's arguments with both critics and supporters. And while this is a divisive case, public opinion doesn't factor into the court's decision, right, Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, every year, when I'm covering cases at the court, there's certain cases where you see these kind of images of a lot of protesters outside the court and dueling rallies and people arguing with each other and so on. I think that, that we've had this on abortion, we've had it on guns and other issues like that. And I think that the court is all kind of cordoned off, right? The protesters can't get into the court. And the security has actually been heightened in recent years. So I think the justices are very much cut off from all of that, and it'd be unusual if it were to play into their decision making.
All right, Lawrence Hurley, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And actor Timothy Busfield has turned himself into authorities in New Mexico days after an arrest warrant was issued on accusations of child sexual abuse. The sitcom star is now charged with 3 counts involving the alleged abuse of 2 children on the set of a TV series. Busfield adamantly denies the claims. He is scheduled to make his first appearance in front of a judge later today. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Melas has the story.
Hollywood star Timothy Busfield ending a days-long search by law enforcement by turning himself in to New Mexico police. The actor now charged with sexual contact of a minor and child abuse. Busfield speaking to TMZ as he surrendered to authorities.
I'm going to confront these lies. They're horrible. They're all lies. And I did not do anything to those little boys. And I'm going to fight it.
The actor was a staple of primetime television for decades.
What are you working on?
Best known for his roles in The West Wing and 30-something, and movies like Field of Dreams.
When did these ball players get here?
According to court documents obtained by NBC News, the alleged abuse happened on the set of the Fox series The Cleaning Lady, in which Busfield directed and acted. Brothers featured in the show told their therapist when they were 11 years old about inappropriate contact from Busfield on set, who they referred to as Uncle Tim, and that it began when they were 7 years old, according to the affidavit. One of the boys alleged Busfield touched both his genitalia and bottom. The affidavit alleges that the behavior went on for almost 2 years. When asked by investigators if he ever had any physical contact with the boys and if he ever picked them up and tickled them, Busfield said it was, quote, highly likely that he would have, later saying, quote, I don't remember overtly tickling the boys ever, but it wouldn't be too uncommon for me. Busfield's lawyer saying his client did not do anything wrong and his client was on the run, telling NBC News, quote, he was across the country and had to travel by car to New Mexico, adding he wants to turn himself in because he wants to clear his name and reputation. Busfield's wife, actress Melissa Gilbert, known for her role in Little House on the Prairie, deactivated her social media after the accusations came to light, telling NBC News she stands with and supports her husband.
And thanks to Chloe Melas for that report.
All right, today looks like another break from winter's icy grip with above average temperatures expected in some parts of the country. So let's get a check on your morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman is tracking everything for us. Hey, Angie.
Hi there, guys. Emphasis on some parts of the country getting a winter break because, yes, along the East Coast, that's where we're still seeing some of those temperatures running way above normal. We've got 50s from New York to Washington, D.C. and down through Roanoke today, 10 degrees above where we should be. But that chilly air is starting to settle in for folks across parts of the Midwest and the Great Lakes with just 20 degrees in Minneapolis this afternoon. Looking ahead to tomorrow, much of the eastern half of the country starts to get back to reality and then really bottoming out with some of those temperatures in some locations. So we switch from the above normal to the below normal very quick in a 24-hour period. It's Chicago at 26 degrees for your high tomorrow, into the low 40s for New York City. But look at Asheville, just 26 degrees. We've got 40s for Montgomery. New Orleans checks in at 50 degrees. So Chillier conditions settling in by tomorrow for a lot of folks, and then they kind of stick with us for the weekend, and we even see them dip a little lower. So we go from those mid-30s on Friday in Detroit to those 20s by the end of the weekend. Even worse in Minneapolis, just a high of 10 degrees by the time Saturday rolls around. It's the 40s and 50s in Raleigh for the end of the work week and into the weekend, but then the 30s are returning. So don't get too used to having those layers in the closet and not taking them out the door with you. Meanwhile, the West is staying warm. We've got 70s across the board in Phoenix. That looks pretty nice to me right now. We've got 50s in Denver. Not great for folks that are looking for some snow. For skiing guys, we've still got those kind of mild conditions that are going to stay with us through the end of the work weekend into the weekend for that region. And we've also got some winter alerts. 10 million people across parts of the Appalachians and the Great Lakes dealing with those winter alerts as we gear up for a bit of rain and a bit of snow from this quick moving system. Here's what it looks like as we get through today. It's a mix of rain and snow for really the eastern third of the country, and those lake effect snow bands, they really ramp up for Indiana and Michigan. By the time we get into tomorrow, some snow showers lingering across the Northeast, but we've got this next system that's going to arrive across the upper Midwest. That's going to leave it being a little difficult for travel as we get through your Thursday.
All right.
A mixed bag.
So but winter's coming. It's not over.
I know. Yes, do not put the layers away just yet.
A bit of weather whiplash, as we call it.
Exactly.
Okay, Angie, thanks so much. Now to some sad news. Civil rights icon Claudette Colvin has died. She was 86 years old. Colvin is credited with sparking the modern civil rights movement after she was arrested in 1955 for refusing to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama, to white passengers. Colvin was only 15 at the time. Her act of resistance took place 9 months before Rosa Parks gained international fame for taking the same stand.
Parks' arrest kicked off the years-long Montgomery bus boycott. It's a moment that propelled Martin Luther King Jr. onto the national stage. Colvin's death comes just over 1 month after Montgomery commemorated the 70th anniversary of that bus boycott. The Claudette Colvin Legacy Foundation says she died of natural causes in Texas.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.